Hello, everyone. This is in-person class number 3, actual class number 5, and you can submit the answers to these questions via email until that point. And once I get them, and once I get the quality of them graded, you'll get your 8 out of 8 points for the day. Please make sure to have them in by this Friday at 5 o'clock, or else your on-time grade will go down. All right, here we go. Um, so, um, so during your last Ed puzzle video, you saw two examples of Shakla Vitaria. Shakla Vitaria is going to be a term that you're going to need to know, and that term means give and take. Shakla Vitaria, or debating. Here I'm using it in an English sense. Did you understand the Shakla Vitaria in that last section of the Talmud? Or can we go over that Shakla Vitaria to see if I got it correct? Also, Shakla Vitaria is a word in modern Hebrew. It means discussion, debate, back and forth. So for question number 1, just give me a sentence an English sentence using the words shakla vitaria as meaning debate, discussion, back and forth. All right. So we asked in class to kind of use the two pieces of Talmud that we did study to give us some general ideas on what the Talmud is all about. Not necessarily what this particular Shakla Vitaria is about, but really how does the Talmud work? How does it try to work? What did you learn from kind of going through this argument? So that's question number 2. And one of the pieces I wanted to bring up in our second Talmud example was, here we have Rav Huna saying something, and then we have Rav Huna being not correct, and then basically the Talmud comes back and says, "Hey, Rav Huna is correct," meaning that you haven't really you have to look at Rav Huna from another perspective. And this idea of trying to kind of justify what people are saying as true is a major characteristic of the Talmud. So the Talmud will often come and try to justify if there seems to be contradiction between what a rabbi says in truth, or what the Torah says and the Mishnah says, or what the Mishnah says and another Mishnah says. So that idea of trying hard to justify and take away contradiction is a major characteristic of the Talmud. So we're going to go on to our third example, a favorite example of mine, of the term ketzad merakdim lifnei hakala, and this term means how do we dance before a bride? And by the way, this is a very famous phrase, ketzad merakdim lifnei hakala, made famous by a song with that same name that we often use during our wedding nights. So let's see if we can get it. Here it is right here. Coming soon. Here we go. Those are the words. How do we dance before a kala, a bride? Before a kala. Okay, good. You got it. So what we have here is, what does this actually mean? Ketzad merakdim lifnei hakala, and Rashi explains Ketzad merakdim means ma omrim lefaneha. what do we say before her? And here's basically the topic, and it's a great one, right? Saying, how do we dance before a bride, or what do we say before her? And here's really the real issue. You're at a wedding on the bride's wedding day, and you go up to her and you see, you know what, she really actually does not look beautiful. But one side of you says, hey, it's her wedding day. I'm supposed to tell her she looks beautiful. But and when she asks, how do I look? What am I supposed to say? Am I supposed to say the truth? Am I supposed to be the truth? So those are basically our two kind of ideas, ping and pong. And actually, they map really nicely on by these two famous rabbis, Rabbi Shammai and Rabbi Hillel. And by the way, you might remember those rabbis because very much in the beginning of the year, when we looked at a at something talking about machloket l'shem shamayim, they use as their examples machlokets between Shammai and Hillel. And here we actually see a machloket between them. And here it's played out in the ping and pong. Now, what I'd like you to do is try to figure out what it's going to say right here. So Shammai says, you say it like you see it. If that bride is not looking good, you tell her she's not looking good. Hillel says, if you see every bride that you see, you always say she looks beautiful, even if she's not beautiful. Now, so we're going to come back right here, and I want you to give the ping side. What's Shammai going to say back? What's Shammai going to say back? And particularly to help you out, we see this little piece of Torah right here. So using that, write exactly for question number 4 what it is that Shammai is going to say back. Right. So Shammai is probably going to say something like, are you serious, Hillel? How could you say she looks beautiful when she doesn't? Doesn't the Torah tell us, midvar shecher tirchak, distance yourself from lies? Okay. And so Shammai is going to say something like that. Say, Hillel, you know, you're kind of saying what's politically correct, but it's not actually true. Shammai is saying, you need to say what's true, and if not, it's a lie. So how is Hillel going to respond? And so that's question number 5. And give me some ideas about how Hillel's, and give me 2 ideas about what Hillel could respond with. Okay. And here is what Hillel actually says. Hillel says, if I buy something from the market, even if others think that what I bought was a bad purchase, am I buying it because I think it is good, or am I buying it because I think it's bad? Of course, I'm buying it because I think it's good. So for question number 6, what is Hillel saying here, and how is it a good response to Shammai's side? Okay, great. So let's move on. And I call this delving in the weeds. And I talked to the class about this today because this is really important. We have learned already that there is this thing called a machloket, and there's a good side and there's a bad side. And we're using the ben sorer moreh, the stubborn and rebellious child, and we're thinking that, well, the Torah says that child is bad, and because machloket is a bad thing, and we should get rid of it. Each and every piece of Mishnah that we're going to study, and each and every bit of Talmud we're going to study, is going to in some way enforce the idea that I don't want this Ben Sorer Moreh to die. I want to limit the amount of people that can become a Ben Sorer Moreh. And if we step back, we're going to realize that all of this is about saying something very specifically about whether we value or don't value machloket. Okay, but here's the problem. We're going to get into a couple Talmud pieces now that are going to get us into the weeds of Talmud, into the logic of Talmud. And every once in a while, and maybe even a lot of the while, you're going to be like, what? What are we studying here? And what does this have to do with this greater question of machloket and disagreement, right? So I'm going to just ask for your patience here as we go through some of these, just because there is a joy and intellectual stimulation in studying Talmud that I really want to show you how amazing it is and how it is the centerpiece of Judaism. And people look at it as and say the best minds, the best, you know, the best minds of Jewish minds out there have honed their skills, their thinking skills around Talmudic logic, around Talmudic thinking. And it behooves us to kind of take a look and see what it's all about. But in the end of the day, every one of the things that we're going to be studying is going to serve the purpose of saying that person called the Ben Sira Morat, it's so narrow that you can never find someone who's an actual Ben Sira Morat. All right, that's it. Good. So let's move on. Let's get a couple words on the board before we question number 7. Ben Sora Moret. Oh, I'm sorry. As it says in the Torah, as it says in the Bible, what's the word for that? Shen Emar. To be guilty is chayav. To be exempt is patur. And 11 is a child younger than a ben is a katan. Okay, so here we go. So we're going to look right now at a piece of Talmud that comes from this question right here, hakatan patur. And the Talmud piece that we're going to look at is going to question whether this is actually true. So before we begin, I want to kind of re-look at our Ben Sorer Mored, like what it says in the Torah. And I want to kind of have a feeling of where are they coming from? Why are we thinking even question? Why are we questioning the katan? Why are we questioning the katan? And I want you to look at the English here and give me at least one reason. This is question number 12 of why they might be questioning whether that a katan is patur. That maybe that's not such a clear-cut statement. Maybe I don't look at this and be like, oh yeah, I can learn from this that anyone below the age of 13, they should be exempt. They should not be guilty, ever be guilty of being a ben surah moreh. How might you question that from what is being said up here? Okay, great. And that's question number 12. And in class, we came up with kind of two ideas of why that might be the case. And the first is we looked at it saying, well, it says son, and the Torah could have said if a man has a stubborn rebellious son and young child, right? Then it would have been very clear about the katan, but it didn't, so I think it leaves it up to question. But I think a larger idea is if we look at the definition of a son and we ask the question, can a katan be a son? Absolutely. Absolutely. Underneath the definition of a son is a katan. Now, a son could also be very, very old, right? A son could actually be a husband and a father. A son could even be a grandfather, right? If there's a great grandfather around, there's a son, right? That grandfather is a son. So it's a little ambiguous. And to say that I can learn from this that a katan is patur, well, maybe that's going a little far. And so that's really where the Talmud is going to come from here. Okay. So here's how it happens. So first of all, the ping side says, how do you know that a katan is patur from being a ben surah moreh? Where's your source for this? A katan is not patur from being a ben surah moreh. So your pong side is going to come back and say, no, 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 no. I can prove to you that a katan should not be a ben surah moreh, that they are not patur, that they are chayav. And where can we do that? They actually look at the Mishnah itself and says there are words of the Mishnah that actually show that the katan is chayav. And what are those words? Just write them down either in Hebrew or English. That's question number 13. Okay, and where is it? Look at that. There it is right there. It says in the Mishnah, a katan is patur. It says it right there and it gives the reason. They're not included in the right. They're below the age of 12 or 13. They're not included, right? It explicitly says it in the Mishnah. And that's exactly what our Pong side is going to say. So if we stop right here, we'd be like, case closed, we're done. We question the idea of a katan being patur or chayav, and boom, we get now that actually they are chayav, okay? That they are patur, okay? But the ping side is like, I'm not quite done yet. I'm not quite done this. So we're going to try again. We're going to try again, and we're going to use kind of specifically the idea that we just came up with, right? The ping side is going to show that maybe actually there is a way that the katan can be chayav. And what is it? And let's see what they come up with. And they say, right, sure, a katan doesn't fall under the definition of man, but shouldn't a katan fall under the definition of son? If I explicitly have to say the stuff about katan, then maybe it's not actually true. Maybe the katan is not patur. Maybe it's chayav. Okay, so the question is, what's the Pong side going to come back to? And this is really hard, but it's really amazing pieces of Talmud. Okay, so what the Talmud is going to do here is um, is the Talmud. Just read this. So if we stop here, the possibility exists that maybe the Mishnah wants us to think Katan can become a Ben Surah Maret. So the Pong side is now going to give us definitive reason why this is not true. The Pong side does it by comparing how the Torah should have written the first sentence that speak about Ben Surah Maret with how the Torah actually wrote this sentence. So let's check that out. All right, let's check that out. It's really interesting, but hard. Okay, so what does the Torah actually write? The Torah, or what? First of all, when we wrote this sentence in English, so it made sense. We wrote, "When a man has a stubborn and rebellious child," right? That's what we kind of said. Or when a man has a stubborn and rebellious son, right? That's how we wrote it, and that makes complete sense. But if you actually translate the words exactly in Hebrew, "Ki yeh leish ben sureh mareh," it is. It means it's translated this: when there will be for a man child, stubborn and rebellious. So, what the Pong side of this argument is going to do right now, it's going to look at the way the Torah should have written in the easiest way, but then looks at what the Torah actually writes and says, wait a second, the Torah writes this in a weird way. That weird way the Torah is writing this is actually teaching me something about a katan being patur. So your question is, the question I'm giving you right now, and it's really the big question that we discussed for a lot of class, is what is it? How is this right here in some way a proof that a katan is patur? All right, so give that your best shot because it's a hard question, but give it your best shot. And when you're ready, go to the next slide. All right. So welcome back. So welcome back. And here is a hint for you. The hint is look at when the Torah could have written it like this. And if the Torah did write it like that, the placement of the word man and the placement of the word child are very far away from each other. The way the Torah actually wrote it, the placement of the word man and the placement of the word child are right next to each other, right? There's no word a in Hebrew, right? So that's your hint. So question number 15 now say, how does the way the Torah actually wrote this prove that the katan is patur? Okay. And the answer, that's 15, and the answer you should have come up with is kind of written right here. So please read this following, and for question number 16, summarize what is said right here. And right. So who won, the ping side or the pong side? That's question number 17. And now we're done. So I'm going to go over the next part for our ed puzzle. So we're done for the day. All right. Send those answers to me via email. All right. By this Friday.